And I starts now.
I'd like to introduce to you Kyle Coulombe with Dynamic General Contracting. Kyle grew up in northern Alberta. He has been happily married with Jeanette for 7 years, and they have 3 children, Chloe, Kaden, and Julia. In his free time, he spends it with his family and renovating their home. Something interesting you might not know is that Kyle often quotes movies and has had his kids reenacting scenes of movies that they've actually never seen. So to get to know more about Kyle and all his quirks, book a one-to-one with him, and I'll pass it on to Kyle.
Thanks, Kelly. Yes, it's a pastime of mine is to quote movie lines, and most people it goes over their head. And my kids lately, they've been redoing the one scene from Napoleon Dynamite where they go to Rex Kwon-Do. If you're my age, you probably know what that is. So anyways, moving on. So I wanted to take a moment to thank Steph, our communication coordinator, for posting content about my upcoming feature presentation. It was really fun to create that for you and see it go online. So let's rock. I'll have some videos. They don't have any sound, so don't worry about it. There's nothing to hear. But I grew up in the country on the banks of the Little Smoky River. I followed my high school sweetheart of 7 years now, Jeanette, to the city, who was going to university, and we decided to start putting roots in the area. Our family moved to St. Albert last year, and we're loving it. And same with the kiddos. So Chloe's 5. She's going to be starting preschool kindergarten this year. Caden's 3. He's getting more and more adventurous with his biking and loving his construction and farm equipment toys. And Julia, that video, she is way past that walking. She just wants to run everywhere now. So I have 15 years of experience, and I've been fortunate to have a vast array of experience, everything from residential all the way to industrial. I got my Red Seal Journeyman Carpenter, or I've had my Red Seal Journeyman Carpenter since 2011, and I'm always working to advance my expertise in renovations, new construction, interior, exterior, design builds. And a lot of what I learn and end up teaching is because of my ability to read blueprints, sections, and details. Without that, we would do a lot of things wrong. And the hands-on experiences that I provide as training for employees and apprentices, it would be tainted with bad habits. So as mentioned in last week's meeting, we just celebrated 6 years of business. And I believe I'm probably different than a lot of carpenters because I do actually enjoy working on my own projects. Here you see me putting on casing, and it might look the same as many other people, but the small details are what keep things consistent. So like we do a lot of pre-prep for the painters to ensure we've got maximum quality for them, and we try and do some additional joinery in our miter and trim work. So here you might have seen me using a tool. It's called a biscuit joiner, and basically it puts a little groove in the casing. We put a little piece of wood. It almost looks like a really perfectly shaped chip, and a ton of glue, and to the point where it's squeezing out of the joint. And then we use a toothbrush and water to clean it. And so far in the 4 years that we've been doing it, we've never had a callback for an open piece of casing. So for our business, all of our clients love having us on the job site. We treat their home as if we're living there as well. So as some of our fellow trade members, they're on Trusted Pros, which is a site that allows our peers and clients to rate us and find work. So I have a 4.9 rating and a 4.2 trust score, which again is from other members giving us ratings. Essentially, we have 21 5-star reviews on Google, and we are core certified. So a C Core certification, for those is not familiar with it, it's a certification that is required in some industries to work in. Small business outfits in residential construction are not required to have it, but it's our commitment to ensure that our job sites and people are safe so that we all go home at the end of the night. I want to take a look at some of the details that we provide in part of the Greener Homes Grant, because that is a popular thing these days. So just a note for those looking at the Greener Homes Grant, you got to get your energy audit complete. If you don't do that, there's not really an easy way to prove that you've gotten that work done, and you will become ineligible to get those grants. We can provide a list of registered outfits that service this area to get your audit done. Things I wanted to talk about, doors and windows. We put in doors and windows. So the main requirement is they have to be InterStar approved. You can see the values here of what you get back per window and door, and it's all dependent on the energy rating. So anything that is equal or greater than a rating of 34 will get you a rebate of $125. If it's higher than 40, you'll get $250 back. So an example, and that's per door or window. So an example of something that would meet that requirement is a triple pane window or fiberglass insulated door. So you can see Caden here was helping me, but it's wow. He helped me for about 5 minutes, then he disappeared to go play with his tractors. It's tough to see, but this door is actually installed in what we call a bump out for insulation upgrade. So what that means is we've detailed it for maximum water protection while maintaining the air barrier system. And it's just to allow, so when we put our exterior finishes on, that it looks normal. We don't have weird flashing or recessed details or anything like that. So it's a detail that we're mastering to ensure that the house looks normal on the outside. To note, when it comes to windows and doors, we're certainly higher priced than most outfits, but we've never had a window or door leak. We actually follow behind a lot of outfits repairing their installation. And the other note is when we do windows and doors, we like to include them in larger projects. That's where our clients get the most value when working with us. So the last detail for windows and doors that is a must is you have to make sure that this sticker here, you can see it right here, must remain on the window so the energy auditor can review it and confirm that it's been replaced with an Energy Star rating. So just make sure we've got to get in the habit in that too as well. We like to clean the windows before we leave. So we've been trying to make sure we don't throw the sticker out. That's one thing we definitely do for our clients is we clean the windows after we've done and finished installing them. Another thing I work in is insulation. Now, for this part of the grant, the less insulation you have, the more you get back. Attic ceiling has a max value of $1,800. The minimum code in Alberta is an R50, and what that works out to, I'll get that in the next slide, but basically for any upgrade that you do, you're going to either get around $250 to $600, and a lot of these grants have to dependent on how much insulation you do. The minimum requirement is you have to do about 20% of the area recommended by the energy auditor. So this is kind of what an attic insulation upgrade looks like. Every once in a while, I'll crawl up there and spray some fiberglass insulation. You're usually shooting around, you're shooting for a depth around 22 to 24 inches deep installed, because the fiberglass actually is going to settle out to about 19 to 21 inches. I've been in attics where someone only put about maybe 12, 14 inches. And after everything settled out, they only had 6 inches of insulation, which only works out to being about R20, 30. So definitely not enough to meet minimum code. And it's really critical too for if you get this insulation upgrade done, that you don't plug the bird mouths or eaves areas. You're going to restrict your airflow and you're going to cause a lot of issues. Make sure you get baffles to extend your venting past your new level of insulation. Most homes pre-1990 will only have, you'll only be able to attain an R20 around the perimeter of your home. Just because the trusses, there's usually only 4 inches there that you can shove insulation into that space, and that's all you're able to fit. And just to give you an image of what like a floor space or a vaulted ceiling might look like when you're insulating, a detail that we do that might be different than most is we actually add an extra layer of styrofoam insulation to the underneath of your floor. And what that does is it reduces the amount of thermal bridging through the wood. Wood is actually a very terrible insulator. It's still an insulator, but it's really bad at it. So that's one way to reduce the heat transfer through your floor. I always recommend to try and use spray foam for your floors. It'll get you the most R value per inch, and it's pretty critical for smaller depth spaces and guaranteed air sealing. Exterior insulation. Now, this is a hot topic for maybe some people, but the grant value, again, is dependent on the amount of R value added and how much is done. pretty much for all of them. 20% is the minimum installation required. There's three values, R7 and to R12. It gives you about $600 to $3,300 of a grant rebate. R12 to R20 is about the same, and R20 and up is the max value that you can get. A lot of times we have to consider with the amount of insulation, how it affects what type of exterior that you can use. Just to give people kind of the concept of what the exterior finishes, what their values are. Vinyl siding is definitely the most inexpensive. Cement board and engineered wood are your mid-range, and then stone and stucco are high range because of how much labor, the extra details required to install an insulation package behind them. So that's usually why they're far more expensive than any other exterior. You can see here, this is the typical insulation project that would be involved on the exterior. So details that we do that we've seen people miss is we ensure our foam insulation goes right to the top of the wall. I've seen installers just stop at the soffit line, which kind of defeats the purpose of insulating your home, because there's a foot above there that they didn't add extra insulation, and you're going to lose heat through there. If you're doing windows and doors with your exterior remodel, it's best practice to bump out your windows and doors to match the insulation plane. It reduces the complications of details. This is the typical work that falls into the R7, R10 range. So usually you get a value of $600 to $3,300 of a grant rebate. You can also use mineral batt insulation on the exterior. It's a typical detail for commercial, but it works great for residential as well. It's an alternative if you don't want to use a product that has high hydrocarbon use. They're developing insulation that's made out of cotton and mushrooms to reduce greenhouse gases if it interests you. Interior, what can I say about that? If you want to attain higher R values, you usually have to change the insulation in your wall cavity. If you want to be in the R12, R20 realm to get that kind of rebate, you're usually spray foaming 2x4 walls completely full. If you want to get R20 and above, you're going to be thickening the walls somewhere. And to get those high levels of insulation, it creates a challenge detailing the exterior, and that's aesthetic, because a lot of times your windows wind up being sunken, and extra maintenance for flashings and sealants, but it can be done. And last, I think a lot of contractors might not understand basement insulation. The grant says that you can get value by adding insulation to your joist space as well as your basement slab. I think most spec homes now have that minimum requirement in their build. Certainly custom homes will have it. Insulating your walls of the basement, you know, are adding R10 to R22. You don't get as much back as portions of the grant. You get anywhere from $200 to $1,500 return if you do an insulation upgrade. So some of the details that we do here, like I said, it's usually under insulated in most homes, especially older homes. Current building code is dictated by an HVAC device called an HRV. So if you have an HRV, you can put less insulation in your home, but most old homes don't have one. So you're required to have around R22 in your basement. And the advertised R values of insulation actually don't include your whole wall assemblies. So a lot of times, if you see on a bag it says R22, you're technically only using 80% of that insulation in your walls, because there's wood, it takes up space. So the actual R value a lot of times is only R16 to R18 in your assembly. So insulation on your own, yes, it will perform as advertised, but nobody builds a home out of fiberglass insulation, just fiberglass insulation. And that's why when you think about it, foam board performs as advertised, because it's usually installed continuously. So hopefully that's not confusing, but when we do our heat calculations for building codes and permit applications, we have to show this detail to ensure that we meet minimum building code. So that's about it. To close, an analogy I like to use is kind of like a cooler full of ice. If you have a cooler that you love as much as a pet or a loved one, and you don't want to throw it out, you're going to repair it. And if it's got holes in it, you're not going to work around the holes, because it's not going to work any better. So make sure you invest in someone who gives a darn about the work that will perform great, and you don't have to pay for it twice like these examples, as you can see here, rot damage and all kinds of fun details. So it's really the small details that will save you thousands of dollars. Types of referrals quickly. We love design builds, first-time renovators, people with poor experiences, mystery problems, unknown leaks or major issues. Just listen, you know, I have a reno project. I don't know where to start, or this is giving me problems, and we will fix them and make them look like they were never there. So thanks so much.
D&I starts now. Like everyone says it.
Are we all saying it? I'm confused.
What are you saying now?
Do we all say D&I?
Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
Starts meow.
Now.
Do you want
You
us to
say
say
it.
D&I?
Say it more casually. Like
Yeah.
we're not trying to rehearse the most impossible phrase in the world.
Now.
Oh,
Now.
D&I
starts now.
Oh.
D&I
starts
I start
now.
now.
Slow.
What was the best one yet?